welcome to the Earthborn Games podcast. I'm your host, Anders Carlson, and joining me are the staff of Earthborn Games. First off, we got game design director, Andrew Fisher. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Anders.
AKA Fisher.
AKA Fisher, yep.
Sorry.
Everybody can call me Fisher, but I'm excited for this, our first official episode, since our last episode was kind of a test run, episode 0. Exciting to be
exactly. I mean,
first real episode today.
It was a test run, but people are saying that it was like one of the best podcasts they've ever heard.
Yeah, all time.
And so
breaking records.
Exactly. So, I mean, we can keep calling it a test run if we want to, but I don't know. Maybe it's our best. It will be our best episode. We'll see. Can we top it? Anyway, next up, we've got visual design director, Evan Simonet. What's up, Evan?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good. How's your evening been so far?
Oh, it's going good. I'm sorry I didn't get good lighting in here. I'll try to get some LEDs or something cool behind me, Fisher has.
Well, as Andrew pointed out earlier, you can just look at mine if you want to feel good about your lighting, because
you have you have like a mystique to yours.
Do I?
Yeah.
Like I'm in a crypt or a bomb shelter or something?
Yeah, there's just like a lot of confusing shapes back there.
For all of you.
I turned the light. I turned the lights off back there so that you wouldn't see all the weird basement, clutter. But it ended up looking creepier, actually.
I like it.
Yeah, for all of you listening on Spotify or places without video, Anders kind of is hiding out in a cave somewhere, I think, and I'm the only one here with the psychedelic gamer lights behind me.
Totally, man. Well, when you have a young baby, you just keep getting your existence just keeps getting smaller and smaller. You're shoved into the basement. I don't even have a bedroom anymore. Anyway, also we're joined by Andrew Navarro, who is the founder and creative director at Earthborn Games. Hey, Andrew.
Hi, Anders. Yeah, I remember when my oldest son was born, I was ejected from my cool room that had my hobby table and my computer desk and
it sucks,
and my guitar amp and all the things I enjoyed.
Yeah, where did they go?
They mostly went into storage.
Go hang in the basement?
Well, no, actually, we lived in a weird house at that time, and they kind of went into this room we called the breezeway, which was a glorified hallway at the top of our stairs that led to our bedroom, and it really just became a home for all the miniatures that I stopped painting, and that then mocked me every time I passed. I eventually put them all away. I felt guilty and just depressed every time I walked past them.
Wait, you have miniatures that are finished?
I do have a few. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. I don't.
Though I think, Andrew, I think your son is probably going to overtake you in miniatures finished here soon.
Yeah, well, that's my younger son for sure. Yeah, 100%. He's a machine when it comes to painting miniatures. I'm quite envious of his confidence and his brushstrokes and his ability to just bang out full units of Space Marines in a day.
Space Marines. Is he going to be selling those?
I hope not.
Hundreds.
I hope not.
Hope not. Yeah.
Could make some good money.
Yeah, don't sell miniatures. Don't you know? You don't sell miniatures. You keep them in a box forever.
I mean, there's what's this place? Dreamer's Gate near my house here, a couple blocks away, and they have glass cases full of finished miniatures.
Dreamer's Vault.
Dreamer's Vault, is that what it's called?
Yeah,
on Hiawatha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I saw them and I was kind of confused because I feel like the fun of miniatures is painting them, right? I didn't know people bought them painted, but maybe there's some superstars.
Oh yeah. That's a whole thing.
Warhammer, is that what it is?
That is
one
of the things.
Yeah, no, there's.
See, when I was a kid, that's kind of that's where I entered this kind of nerdy world. Is I would get stuff like miniatures and magic cards and comic books but I never played them or read them. I just would like hold them and, look at the details and stare at the art in the comic books, but I never seriously just never read a single page. So I feel like kind of like a weird half nerd. Yeah.
You're kind of representing a large cross section of hobby collectors and gamers, though. I think we worked with people at FFG that would just buy games just to have them.
Really?
Who would do that?
You want names?
I worked 5 feet from one of them.
Yeah. No,
you guys.
I think that's a big part of the hobby is owning games that you don't play, but you aspire to play, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, and I think there
collecting
can be
and having something new. Sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
Oh no, it's okay. I think there can be a collecting mindset, right? Like there's especially with Kickstarter, us on Kickstarter, there can be kind of a completionist mindset for one, feeling like you kind of like have everything there is to offer. And also I think, especially for board games, they're also different, like, is it player count, play time, total weight type of experience, right? And a lot of people feel like they want to have kind of everything covered, right? And a game for every possible thing that would come up, right? So that they have the perfect game to pull off their shelf. Though, at least in my experience, I feel like most people, it's usually they end up playing the small handful of their favorite games. Those get a ton of plays, and then a lot of the other ones kind of sit there for years until they're finally trotted out.
But a lot of those are really well organized and sleeved, and I think a lot of players just like organizing their stuff, their library.
And they don't feel guilty about those games they haven't played.
Well,
No, I don't
it depends
think so.
on the person.
Well, yeah, I was thinking maybe there's like two different types of people, because I have a lot of things that I don't play, video games, board games, whatever, and I feel really guilty about it. Do you guys have any of that backlog guilt?
Is your Steam library, unplayed Steam library, just looming?
Oh yeah, just hundreds and hundreds of dollars in games that I've never played. Maybe played like 10 minutes, and then I stopped and went back to the favorite game. But
at
are
least
you guys
they don't.
collectors? Do you guys collect games that you don't play?
I don't.
You could say that.
I wouldn't call myself a collector, because I feel like that is that mentality where you just kind of have to have everything. But I do have a decent sized game collection for sure. But yeah, I don't feel a compulsion to go out and just kind of grab everything of a specific type, or of, have a full library of a game for every occasion, even though I do have a full library of a game for every occasion.
Right.
I'm not really a board game collector, other than I have started hoarding and collecting Hero Quest, like the 1989 Milton Bradley Hero Quest. So I have 2 full copies in like various states of I don't know, wear and tear. But one of them I got from Half Price Books, following a lead that I heard from someone that I worked with. And when I showed up there to get it, I discovered that it came with 2 sets of components for everything, like 2 sets of each card type, and then 2 sets of plastic, which was an amazing steal. And the people at Half Price didn't realize it, I don't think. So
they didn't price it accordingly.
I don't think they looked at the
Innards?
the component count or anything. They just saw a pile of stuff inside the box and
Nice.
Right.
put a price on it. So it's pretty cool.
That is
How
cool.
many more Hero Quest do you plan on buying? Do you need-
I've already kind of reached the ceiling, because all of the expansions are really hard to find, and if you look on eBay, they're like thousands of dollars.
Dang.
Yeah.
How much could you sell the things you have for?
Not nearly as much. The core set is is something you can find a lot more easily, and also Hasbro Pulse just did like a really successful, the equivalent of a Kickstarter, and re-released that. So I'm sure it's the original. Might not be as popular now or something, or hard to get, because people are satiating themselves with like the new version. Although I don't think the plastic is as good, because it's like that PVC, like soft plastic, and not the ABS of the original. So
Damn, you got to have that ABS.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows that.
Well, for our
So
game,
you guys
we're not going to be
go ahead.
doing either kind of plastic. Well, a lot of games use those kinds. We're trying to avoid any plastics in our games. Besides, we did look during the Kickstarter at doing some bioplastics for the tokens, but everything else in the game is paper, and now we've moved to wood for those tokens. So we're trying to avoid, and then even our miniatures are recycled pewter. So we're trying to avoid plastics as much as we possibly can in our products. Andrew can probably speak to that a bit more, but
that's super cool.
Yeah, I'll talk more about that later.
Oh, I guess. Yeah, we do have we have an official outline for our episode 1 now, and we have a section where we talk about sustainability. So.
Fisher's just passionate about sustainability.
Yeah,
jumping the gun a little bit here.
We'll get into it.
Awesome. Well, we can continue talking about what's going on over at Earthborn Games HQ. I bet you guys are super busy. It seems like you are whenever I talk to Evan. I want to just check in with you guys and see what you've been up to. I'm sure there's some cool stuff you can share with our listeners. And I'm gonna go to Fisher first. What's going on? What's going on with you?
Yeah, so over in kind of game design land, I think I mentioned last podcast we were getting ready to go to Wave 2 of testing. So, which is kind of the wave of testing where we're going to be testing the campaign and story of the game. And so we're launching into that this week. And so it's pretty exciting. As part of that, kind of one of our main focuses has been getting our campaign guide up and going for the game. The campaign guide, for those of you who might not know, I feel like most of our listeners probably know. A lot of you are probably backers. But for Anders, you don't know. And for other people who might not, our campaign guide is kind of the brains of the game. It is what tells the story, what links everything together, what is going to track all of your progress on a little tracking sheet. And so as you play through the game, you'll read different sections from this campaign guide. Cards in the game will tell you to go to different sections of this campaign guide and read them, and they'll tell you the story, give you different choices, react to your choices, and then play out the story differently based on the way things might have gone in past sessions. So it kind of tells this story across a campaign and hopefully reacts to you and creates this living, breathing world. And all of this is done with all these journal entries and numbers, and then this tracking sheet where you can write down the things we tell you, different things to write down, and then the campaign guide will kind of check against it in the future to kind of react to that. And so our game is a campaign game that, may last 12 to 30 sessions, depending on how much you explore the open world. And so as you can imagine, this guide that runs this open world is this pretty complex beast. So we've been working on getting all of that up and running so that the testers can use that document. And right now, so that's a lot of what I've been working on, is I've been kind of creating the skeleton of this thing. Not necessarily every word that people will read in the final game, but all of kind of the logic and the linking and like kind of our rules for what each section needs to accomplish. And then our writer, Sam Gregor Stewart, is going through and kind of using my prompts and then building on it, and using all of his storytelling expertise from working on role-playing games for over a decade to kind of like build it into more flavorful, appropriate prose, and kind of building onto the skeleton. So that's kind of what we've been doing, getting ready for this wave of testing. I'll tell you, I'm ready to not be looking at a Word document anymore, though. I'm ready to actually have the game on the table next week again.
Well, I went in there this past weekend, to start reviewing all the mission entries, and start to get another pair of eyes on it. And I have not really been in that document since, I don't know, maybe like right after the Kickstarter, and we had like a very small version of that document ready for that. And man, it's enormous. Like I understand how you feel. It's such a, like, I was scrolling down and it just keeps going and going and going. There's just so many words. It's pretty awesome. So there's a ton of content.
Yeah. So it's basically going to be a small novel inside the box.
Yeah, what was
Like, how many pages are we looking at here?
Well, so the page count's kind of up in the air because we're considering different formats for the book. So we may do like a smaller size. We may do like a standard, like 8.5 by 11. But what's our word count at right now, Fisher?
Right now
Or
in the
roughly?
outline, I think we were at roughly like 25 to 30,000 words. And then that's just the outline. So like I said, these things are just like my little notes. And then as Sam fills that out, that usually inflates. I mean, I say little notes, but I'll kind of hit on every logical story beat or whatever else needs to happen. It's just not in a way that, we want to sell to people. It's not like, it's not the way we want people actually playing the game. So as Sam fills that out, it usually inflates by about 50 to 100% additional. So I think we can expect to land, and also assuming, we add some extra sections and there's a little bit of word count inflation that I'm underestimating, I think we'll probably land a little north of 60,000 words for the final campaign guide. So it'll be a pretty decent novella/novel that's coming in the box.
That's exciting. You mentioned that the game takes place as a campaign. I'm sorry, I'm trying to like figure this out. I've never played a game that gets played over, you said like 13 sessions or so. How does that? Are you just setting up and you're going to have like your game station set up there? It's how does that? What does that look like? I'm just trying to. It sounds crazy to me.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. A lot of different games do it differently. There's campaign board games and card games have been increasing in popularity over the last 10 years or so. And so every game does it a little differently. But no, usually you don't leave it set up. Though I have seen people who left like Seventh Continent set up until they were done on a table they didn't need to use. But for our game, it is designed to be...
Is that a notoriously long game?
It is another kind of exploration-based campaign board game that you would play over multiple sessions. It kickstarted a few years ago and kind of has a lot of similar mechanical themes to Earthborn as you kind of explore this open world in the game. So it's a fairly like a common point of comparison for kind of what we're doing with an open world.
Mm-hmm. Sorry if I'm asking some pretty basic questions, but it can be played as one player, correct?
Earthborn?
Is it
Earthborn Rangers? Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Rangers,
Yeah. So that's actually been one of the important things is that we have kind of true solo play in the game, so that somebody can just play as a single ranger and play through the whole story and the whole campaign. You might have to build a slightly different deck that can't maybe like hyper specialize in one thing because you don't have other people around to support you. You might need to be a little more jack of all trades kind of person, but solo play is really important. Yeah. So all the way from solo play to 4 people, and you're going to be able to drop in and out as far as like you could play one session with just one ranger and then another session with 4. Though, if somebody's not there, they're not going to be getting the rewards or anything else miss part of the story. But you can kind of change your player count game to game, and the game will adjust per session with you. But to your original question about campaign stuff, for these games, you do pack it up. So, for example, if you were playing Earthborn Rangers, if the 4 of us were playing Earthborn Rangers, we'd each have our deck that represents our ranger, and we would just kind of take that, pack it up, put it in the box in its own little section, and so that we could just take it out next time and use that same deck with all its customizations. If, for example, you wanted to break down the game and unsort those decks, you're going to have to write down kind of your deck list to preserve it. Otherwise, you're going to have to kind of recreate your deck from scratch and your other cards. But from there, all your story progress is tracked on this campaign tracking sheet. So anytime something happens in the story, we have you record it down. And so that campaign tracking sheet keeps track of everything important that you've done and how it impacts the story. So all you really need is your decks and that tracking sheet, and that's enough kind of logic for the game to know exactly where you're at.
That's awesome. I'm excited to play this. I've never played anything like it. And I'm sorry to the listeners if you already knew all this stuff. I'm intentionally coming into this a little bit, without any knowledge. But I did watch How to Play today with you two guys.
Oh, nice.
On YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
And
that seems like so
I know
long
how to
ago
play now.
No.
I know.
Yeah, the weather was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was
Where
warm.
were you guys? In Panama or something?
We were in my backyard.
I figured. I think I saw you maybe like smile to maybe what I assumed was like a kid of yours or something.
Yeah, he was
at one point.
Yeah, he was there. He was there.
He was like right off camera.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually, like, right when we sat down to start recording, a neighbor fired up their leaf blower, and
Oh, really?
It's like
Yeah, it was
on
like
cue.
it was like on cue, exactly. Yeah, and he immediately like just ran off and then asked him to please turn off his leaf blower, which he did. It was very nice.
Oh, nice neighbor.
Yeah.
But
Cool. Well, thanks
Anders-
for sharing, Fisher. Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say you don't need to apologize for asking these kind of questions. That's the whole reason Anders is here, kind of hosting us. Is being people who have worked on games together for a long time. I think that Andrew, Evan, and I could very quickly get into like jargon or into the weeds, and like it might not make for good listening. So Anders is here to kind of
Right.
prompt us with questions, remind us when we should explain things, give us a perspective that isn't so just kind of insular to the industry. So don't feel bad at all. That's the whole.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's that's why we want you here.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, thanks for reminding me why I'm here. Evan, the art guy.
Yeah.
Tell me what you've been working on.
I will. I just had a really great idea for someone to mention before I forget. We
Okay.
could call solo mode like Lone Ranger
Yeah.
or something.
Oh,
How about that? Would we get
Yeah, we can
copyright?
sue you.
Oh, is it a copyright thing?
I think I
I think
used
it might
that
be
joke.
public domain.
Yeah, no,
you did?
no,
Oh, I
I
thought
think
it
I
was the
used that
first
joke
one.
in an update.
Okay.
I think I mentioned a Lone Ranger. It definitely popped in my head. But we could.
Okay.
I think we very well could and should call it Lone Ranger
It
mode.
could be like a challenge mode, like an extra, I don't know,
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
that's kind of how I,
community-driven thing.
well, that's kind of how I like to play, though. Like that's that character archetype I
Yeah.
like is like the conciliator. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I don't know if anybody knows except our playtesters that we in the Kickstarter we had a character specialization called Constable, which we've changed to Conciliator, and they're kind of like a like a sheriff in a way. They kind of go from town to town and help mediate disputes and help people out. And I really like that style of character. So I really get into the Lone Ranger vibe with my
Yeah.
character. And that's how I
Yeah,
played
everybody loves that.
the kind of like early version of I played through like the first half of like the campaign outline, kind of just piecing it together with the stand-in missions we had for the first round of testing, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to playing with the actual missions and the campaign guide.
I'm looking forward to playing as either the second conciliator piece that I did or the second artificer, because those are my two favorite ranger pieces that I made so far.
Nice.
I'm really
What
happy
is-
with them. So
What does the second conciliator piece look like?
So the character has like Orlin Thumper, like she's not really brandishing it, but she's kind of just holding it at her side, and has like the signature kind of like head shield. I guess
Oh,
we don't really have a name for that.
She was the one that
Um,
you originally sketched with like the thumper on her shoulder, and she just looked way too much like she was ready to kick someone's ass.
Yeah, it wasn't really in keeping with the
What is a
spirit
thumper?
of Earthborn Rangers.
What's a thumper?
So an Orlin Thumper is like a piece of gear that you can equip, and I believe it delivers some sort of pulse, like an energy wave or something that can knock back targets. I don't really know how it functions mechanically as a card, but
Yeah,
It
it's
looks
kind
like
of
a
like
club.
it's kind of like a stun baton almost. So you can kind of hit things with it. And deliver non-lethal jolts to kind of like deal with threats, but not necessarily
Yes.
like kill them, right?
Right. Is that kind of one of the like aspects of this game, is that there's not any puncturing of skin, death. You know what I mean? Is it kind of leaning towards a little more non-violent? That's kind of the vibe I was getting when I've looked at Kickstarter and whatnot.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Andrew, you can probably talk a bit about
Am I
like
off on this?
how we feel about like the balance we want to strike with violence versus peacefulness in the valley.
Yeah. No, you definitely got the right sense, Anders. What we're going for is a game where you can resort to violence, but it's not the only option, and it's not required. And I think like lots of people, when they sit down to play, kind of their first instinct, just because of the way that cooperative card games that have come before work, is everything that comes out of the deck and sits in front of you, you immediately look at is like, oh, how do I get this thing out of here? How do I kill it? I think that's a really interesting. I found that really interesting observation when I would demo the game for people. Is there's that trained instinct that we have as gamers just to kind of just murder everything in our path, and I really wanted to create a game that I don't know, just makes you think about that for a minute, what that might imply, but also to create a game that gives you an opportunity to come at problems from a different angle. So yeah, especially in the early going, I tried to do lots of playthroughs where like kind of pacifist playthroughs where I don't clear anything from harm, which is in basic terms like putting damage on a being to get it out of there. But that is that is more challenging, just like when you encounter dangers in life. The simpler solution might be just to murder the thing, but if you want to try to be compassionate and not shed any blood, that option's available. So yeah, it's fun. It kind of comes down to like how you want to play, what kind of character you want to play, and how much of a challenge you're really looking for.
Well, I think an interesting comparison is how this game is so similar to like RPGs in the way that you create your character. And there's that trope of RPG players who end up becoming like murder hobos.
What does that mean?
It's like when players roll up their characters and they enter the role-playing world and they just live. They don't have a place to call home, and they just resort to violence all too often. So they just are kind of this moving force of destruction across the land, and they become less. It's less about being heroes and more about just mayhem.
Yeah, getting out like that pent up stuff that we all have, maybe.
Kind of like when you're playing Skyrim and you save before you go into a village, just so you can like wreak havoc. Do some dragon shouts and stuff, and then reload your game, and like none of the, villagers remember all the destruction you've caused.
Well, I don't think any of us have ever done anything that weird, man.
Yeah, that's just you, Evan. I don't know what you're talking about.
What about the guy that always mentions the Cloud District in Whiterun or whatever? He's so annoying.
Is that someone in Earthborn?
No, in Skyrim.
Skyrim.
Sorry, I'm going off track here.
Put an arrow in your knee.
Coming in hot with those 2010 memes.
Yeah,
yeah.
I know.
2011,
2011,
actually.
yeah, sorry.
So, Evan, what else have you been working on? I think we got
Yeah. So I've been working with, like we mentioned with the last episode, I've started to work with a lot of artists, and that's ramped up even more since then. So I think half of my working day is devoted to feedback, giving artists feedback on their sketches or art at different stages of completion. And I usually run that stuff by Andrew, and we both look at it together. And it's really time consuming to just like point something out and then be like, well, how do I convey this to the artist in a meaningful way? So a lot of time is spent like composing messages and finding the right reference material and making sure that I'm eloquent enough to convey what I'd like them to change. And it's been working out really good so far. And I got to say, like, all the artists that we're working with are super receptive to feedback. I'm kind of new to this role where I'm dealing, like, having an art direction position. So I'm always approaching it like, can you please, like, I'm sorry, make this change, please. Thank you. And they're just like, sure. Yeah, that's fine. And I realize I'm dealing with professionals and I'm like, yeah, they're used to that. Like, this is part of the job. So yeah. And then the other half of my day is doing my own art. And that's been mainly, I've been doing like a lot of the path card art. The path cards are the cards that are made when rangers are traveling between locations. So there's like features and beings and interesting things to encounter. And so I'm trying to get as many of those path illustrations off my plate as possible so I can circle back to the ranger cards, which some artists are already working on right now, and help them out. So it's like I'm kind of just moving around and trying to fill in where I'm needed and trying to be as productive with my own work as possible. I just finished a piece called the Spiderline Stanchion, which is a feature in the Mountain Pass deck. And it's like a cool zip line network that rangers can utilize to zip around the valley. And it's represented as this like two-tiered, I don't know, support with like weird energy beams that represent zip lines, and you can ride them. I think they're energy beams at the moment.
Yeah,
they were.
Yeah, that's what we got right now. Are kind of like these cool thin energy beams.
Yeah. We're just making this stuff up as we go, kind of sometimes. Not all the time, but I mean, I initially started with just conventional zip lines, and Andrew was like, oh, let's just see something more interesting. So it became energy beams, and it's way cooler.
Yeah, that's been one of the really fun parts is we have all this lore to work from, that Sam put together. But then, since we're in complete control over the IP and the visuals, like if there's an opportunity to make something cool, we'll just make it, and then we'll revise the lore to match. So it's resulted in some really cool stuff.
The rule of cool.
Yeah, the rule of cool. I mean, that's why we have art directors, right? Because I think if we reach the point where we think something is great, good enough, probably could be a little better, and we're probably not going to tell ourselves that, right?
And there's a really neat like intersection where like I throw an art brief at an artist that was composed as a result of a discussion that Andrew and I had, and I have a bunch of reference material, and at a certain point it's up to them to just freely interpret that. And I think a really cool success story that I feel like I've most recently had was the artist who did the location art for Meadow. Meadow is like a farming town, and it's surrounded by this field of tall grass that's called the Whispering Fields. And a lot of creatures can hide in the tall grasses, and the paths that lead to and from the valley are these foot trails that are probably about as wide as two people walking side by side, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I went into the art brief with not a strong impression in my mind of what the place looked like, and then by the time I was done with it, I felt like I could like live there and visualize everything. And then when the artist like turned around like the finished product, I was just blown away, and it's super cool just to see someone else make the final push and realize something, and they do things that you didn't expect, and it enriches the world. So it's been really fun and gratifying. And
that's cool. So I always wonder when I'm looking at things like games or anything where there's tons of art and there's probably multiple artists working on it, like how hard is it to get like a consistent style? Like as an artist, I'll look at something and I'll like some deck of cards and see like, oh, a different artist clearly did this one. Like how much are you like pushing for it to all look like it was maybe done by one artist? Or Or you're not
That
trying
is
to hide
a push that I'm gonna have to do. Like, I'm probably gonna have to. That's a thing I'm gonna have to be more aware of as more like Ranger art comes in. Because at the moment there isn't a whole lot of finished art that is like looking. There isn't like finished art that's complete yet that looks like my style. So I really haven't. It's kind of the jury's out still. So, but we put a lot of time in selecting artists that fit the mold, I suppose, and so we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. It's definitely been a learning process for me. So moving forward, I'm sure I'll have some lessons that I've learned to fall back on when we come out with future expansions and stuff like that.
Well,
So
I think really, you know, when you do a card game of this size, like there needs to be a spectrum. Like it's not practical to have all the art look the same, unless, you know, Evan does everything, and it just takes, you know, 3 years to complete. So, which, you know,
At least, have you seen that spreadsheet?
Yeah, I think 3 years is you could do it. I don't know if you'd want to do it, but I think you could. Yeah, to me, it's, you know, what like everyone was saying, I was like, we just need to, you know, find artists that, you know, fit in that spectrum that we feel like is a good representation of the visual look. And, you know, obviously Evan's work is the touchstone for that, so everything needs to look good with his art. And I think, you know, all the artists that we've begun working with, I think, fit that mold really well. But we've definitely made it more challenging for ourselves because we have a more distinct look that's unlike kind of the work that everyone else is doing. Like if you look like Magic the Gathering, or you look at like Flesh and Blood, or like Arkham Horror, the card game. All those games are like super art intensive and so many cards. But the style of art is more ubiquitous, where you can find a lot of people who do that kind of thing. You can't necessarily, you know, immediately find a lot of people that do stuff that's similar to what Evan created for the Kickstarter and, you know, the look that we want for the game. So that's been a challenge, but I think, you know, so far it's like helped us kind of hone in on a few people that I think really, you know, fit exceptionally well. And, you know, we'll need to continue to widen that search and, you know, cast a larger net to get some more people in, especially, you know, over the years, and we do more and more expansions. But I feel like the more success we have and the more that we can kind of point to the art that we've already created, the easier that's going to become.
Totally. Well, that wraps up Evan's news for the week, right? Anything else?
Yeah,
you wanted
I think
to
so.
share? Yeah.
I wish I
that
could
was a
share
lot.
things. I wish I could just share things like visually with everybody, but
We
We could talk
gonna
about
be
doing
spoiling things.
Yeah, we might be able to do that. You know, since we're, you know, trying out some video, we could maybe try to like intersperse
Sure,
artwork. That
yeah.
could be cool.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're you know, we'll get into it. Like this actually goes with my little bit, so I can talk about it. You know, we're going to be doing more promotion, especially as we get closer to, you know, launching the pre-order store. The pre-order store gets up, and so we'll be sharing art. We could coordinate too with what we post on social media with what we talk about here. That could be
Right.
That could be
Give
good.
the listeners, the viewers, like something to tune in for.
Yeah.
Sneak peeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Behind the scenes sneak peek. Yeah. I'm excited to see some of that stuff. So we're kind of segueing into you, Andrew. Tell us about what's going on.
Yeah. So
With your job.
these past couple weeks, most of my time has been taken up with talking to BackerKit and Stripe support about credit card issues that some people have been having. Yeah, it's awesome.
Fun. Is this what you dreamed of?
it's you know what, it's I'm grateful to have the problem that people want to give us money. It's and it's a bummer that some of them are having difficulty giving us money because of the issues they're experiencing, but no, it's good. And I I like interfacing with the customers, with the backers. Interfacing, it's like a terrible word. I like chatting with them.
Interfacing.
Yeah, I interface with the customer. I like chatting with them on email. Even though it's sometimes they're having problems. It's fun, especially when I can solve their problems. But yeah, the challenging thing is this has been an issue where there's not really an awesome solution that I can do. It's just like the issue that some people have been having with like European banks, and I've gotten even more information today about that. But essentially what it boils down to is that when some people are putting in their information to complete their transaction on BackerKit, their bank is flagging that transaction as fraud. So, and that can be for a multitude of reasons. I had a backer reach out today because I talked about this in the Kickstarter update, kind of sharing their perspective on it. And from their perspective, they're like, yeah, this is a problem that Kickstarter and BackerKit have because it's easy to use other people's cards for things like this. So what it really boils down to is that those banks are flagging these transactions as fraud, and you have to just go to your bank and say, hey, this isn't fraud. Please authorize this payment, which isn't awesome because, if you were to tell me I need to go talk to my bank about anything, I just think, oh, please, no, anything but that. But yeah, who knows? Maybe this is a problem with my bank, and other people have awesome banks.
You gotta stick with your hometown bank, like I do.
Yeah. Do you have like a dude?
I go to my bank is called Lake Area Bank. Ever heard of that one?
No. Is it just the area around the lake?
It's in White Bear Lake where I grew up. Yeah, just there's one in Forest Lake as well. And I call them up and they say hello. So you don't get that with US Bank.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
But then, for a while I had to like drive out to White Bear to deposit a physical check and all that. But now they have, the take a picture of your check and they'll deposit it that way. But
yeah.
Lake Area Bank, guys.
Yeah, it's it'd probably be preferable to what I'm dealing with. Yeah, so that's been a lot of my week dealing with that. But I think we're finally on the tail end of that. And I think one of the things I wanted to do was get that sorted out before we launch the pre-order store, because the last thing I want is for new people to be coming in and then experiencing this problem, because that's not great. So now that I think I understand, I've got my head wrapped around it, and then I feel like I understand it about as well as I can. I'm feeling better about that. So we've gotten a lot of people reach out and say, hey, I heard about your project late. I want to, I'd love to support you guys. Is there a way I can do that? And, for the past several months, I've just been, sending them to the website to sign up for to the mailing list, where we'll let everyone know once it launches. But I think we're getting pretty close. We just need to coordinate with our publishing partners in Italy and Germany. We're going to try to get all of our pre-order stores, I think, up simultaneously. I have a meeting later this week with the marketing person at Frosted Games. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, my hope was that we'd already have it up in January. But, like I said, since we've been having these issues, I'm kind of glad we didn't launch it. But hopefully we'll have that by the end of February is the goal now. So, stay tuned. Follow us on social, sign up to the mailing list, find out if you're looking to pre-order or late pledge.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. So the other thing I've been doing, in December, I started working with a consulting firm called All About Games, which is staffed primarily or entirely by former Asmodee people. So, people who I've worked with before, who reached out and are interested in working with us. And they're helping with our manufacturing and also with finding foreign publishers to localize and do the game in other languages. So that's pretty exciting. And since bringing them on board, they've been really active in helping us get a handle on manufacturing, and got some really good leads. I have a new quote from Ludofact, which is pretty good. We have a quote from from a factory in Poland that I hear is also pretty promising. And I had been talking to a rep at a domestic printer, because we've committed to print domestically, called Delano in Michigan. And I was getting really worried because I hadn't heard from them in a couple months. And, they'd given us a really great quote. And that's really why I felt really confident going into the Kickstarter about, making regional manufacturing a thing, because I had this great quote. It seemed like I had a good relationship with the rep at Delano. And then the emails just kind of stopped coming. I'm like, oh man, did we just get like ghosted by Delano?
What did I say?
Worry about it. Yeah, I know. The last thing I said to him, I think on our call, was like, hey man, I really appreciate you. And I really am looking forward to like having like a long relationship, because that's
you got too needy.
Yeah, that's right.
Just getting moving too fast.
I proposed too early.
You wanted to put a ring on.
Yeah,
it.
I tried. But then there was just nothing. So I was worried, and so I finally sent a follow-up email a few weeks ago that then All About Games chimed in on too, and then heard back, which was great. But the sales rep had left the company and didn't bother to tell me. So
oh dang.
Yeah, so that wasn't awesome, but I was pretty happy to hear back, and then then received more emails from Delano in the space of like 3 days than I had in like the previous 3 months. So
right.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. So we have a quote coming in from them too. So we'll see how it goes. But so far it's looking really good. Like we're good on FSC, the Forward Stewardship Council certification on all the paper in the game, and that's pretty awesome. We're quoting out recyclable cards. So that's something that I've talked about a lot in the past, where the standard card stock for a lot of card games of this nature has a black core to it, which is, so these black core cards are essentially 2 pieces of paper glued together with a big wad of adhesive in the middle. But that big wad of adhesive in the middle makes those cards impossible to recycle, because it's just like trying to recycle glue. So that card stock is in really high demand from what I hear. But the card stock we're going for, which is just as thick, it should be just as durable, it doesn't have a core, is in less demand. So that's good, because there's been some paper shortages, supply shortages. So everything I think is going well. The only thing that has been challenging, and I think is going to continue to be a challenge, is a solution for packaging the game for transport, which is the default is always shrink wrap. Like shrink wrap is on everything, and I've talked to him about like doing like biodegradable shrink wrap, because that's the thing that exists. You can just Google it and find it. But according to them, it's not, or the printers, it's not something that's really made for their machines, so they can't necessarily get it. I think we can continue to push them on that and see what our options are, but that's the challenge. So we're trying to figure out like how to protect the box so it doesn't get all scuffed up and jacked up in transport. And I think the best idea we have right now is maybe doing a sleeve, like a paper sleeve. But yeah, that's the big challenge, because I want to do, if we can achieve like 0 single-use plastics, I mean that's the goal. That'd be awesome.
Right.
But I don't know if we ultimately end up having to compromise and have just this one. That's okay, I guess. I'd be a little disappointed, and we can continue to work toward not having that in the future. But yeah, right now that's the only hurdle, because we can have paper wrap around the cards in the box. The machines can do that now, which is pretty sweet. So yeah, so it's looking pretty good, I think. Knock on wood.
I think you should design the box with the intention of it being looking better dinged up, right? Like you talked about the old Hobbit cover; those probably all look pretty raggedy by now.
Yeah, or you could just make it look like shit,
artifact,
or like
make it look like
super
shit.
scuffed up.
I have kind of a problem with that because I used to work in like scrapbooking, doing like paper products and patterns and stuff, things to help people make their scrapbooks look way cooler, I guess. But the whole thing about those was to make them look old with like digital like stains and wear and tear and yellowing on the edge. Right. Is a very strange practice. Like making something. I took a little bit of that knowledge in when I worked on Arkham Horror, the LCG, because those cards look kind of like old and dated or whatever. But I don't know if I can really bring myself to do that to this box.
Yeah,
I think that's to age naturally.
Yeah, it'll age in transport from the factory to the store to the people's house. You know, because there's not going to be any or cellophane on it.
I think we should use like linen bags or something.
Oh, sure.
That's cool.
Just raise the price by another $10 for that linen bag.
I don't see. That's why I don't handle the money. I thought those would be really cheap.
Evan's like solid gold, coat it in gold.
Can we use Fabergé eggshells for packaging?
Yeah. And I think the last bit of news on manufacturing, we got updated near final sculpts for the reclaimed pewter Ranger miniatures, and those are looking really awesome. So we should see physical samples. I was just chatting with those guys today. We should see physical samples hopefully before the end of this month. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Cool. That's really cool.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah. I think they're looking awesome. So I'm really looking forward to being able to show people images of the actual thing instead of just like a computer render, because I feel like that's the I was talking to Fisher about this like a couple of weeks ago. It's like, as a miniatures person, like I would never buy a miniature based on a render unless I was very confident in the company that's making it. Like, if GW showed me a render, I'd be like, oh yeah, cool. Or like
because the final product is never really matches the...
Well, in some places, like I said, if you're going with like a known quantity, you can be very confident. Like, GW's miniatures are just beautiful, and you're going to be getting like a really well made product. So I would feel totally confident in that. But like, if you're like looking at, hey, there's this card game, and here's these renders for these miniatures that are it's like stand-ins for your Ranger token, and they're going to be cast in pewter, I immediately become skeptical as to whether or not that detail is going to hold up and how it holds up, and then what the final product will look like. So I feel like, I'm hopeful, that once we get those in, they're going to look amazing, and then that'll maybe bring some more people over to jump on those miniatures, because the designs are awesome. So and like I've said multiple times, I'm very much I've been into miniatures for, I don't know, 35 years. So I dig them.
Since you were like 25 years old.
Yeah, right. So like, I really care about the quality. So, we're not going to do anything that's not, high quality, but I also want to see like how those come out. Cause like, it's been a long time since I've held a metal miniature in my hand. Everything's just moved to plastic. So I'm pretty excited about that too, because there's something about a metal miniature that just feels better. Like just the heft is nice. And especially when you're playing like a tabletop miniatures game, I think like having like that metal, that big metal thing that just has weight on it, you're not going to accidentally knock it over. Or
how big are these bad boys?
Yeah, some of them are pretty huge. The miniatures that we're doing are about 35 millimeters tall.
I still have hard feelings.
So is that like an inch? Go ahead.
I still have hard feelings about pewter miniatures. When I was a kid, I had this wood elf army. I mean, it was not, I won't say beautifully painted, because I wasn't a very good painter, but they had the tree men, which are these big living trees, and it was all pewter. And this thing was a brick. And of course, I'm a kid. I transport my army in a shoebox. And I don't remember the exact circumstances where the shoebox got shook around, but imagine a pewter bowling ball just going through a through a shoebox filled with your painted miniatures. It was a disaster. So I still have hard feelings about giant pewter miniatures.
Man, that's brutal. Yeah, I got this awesome. It looked awesome. Trying to put together was not awesome. I got like this big pewter Black Dragon D&D miniature, like, I don't know, 25 years ago. I could not get that thing together. I could not figure out how to make it go together.
You have to assemble pewter miniatures?
Yeah, you want to assemble ours, but those, it's like the whole process is just like, I mean, assembly for plastic is like 1,000 times better. Like I would always, I'd take the time to like drill in with my little drill for the arm, and then I put in the post for the arm, and then I'd drill into the arm itself, and then I clip it, and then I push it together, and like that over and over and over again. It's fun. Like that's the hobby that's the hobby. Like that's the joy is that process. But when you switch over to plastic,
my face was, the joy is painting and playing them. I don't think anybody enjoys pinning their model and then watching it fall apart anyway.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I have plenty of miniatures that like they're just in storage. When I take them out, their arms just go and fall off. But they're easy to fix.
Well, maybe we can debut the miniatures on this very podcast.
Yeah,
YouTube.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That'd be pretty cool.
That would be awesome.
So stay with us, folks. We'll be here every other week. And maybe you'll see some pewter.
Yeah.
Some hot pewter. Well, we kind of touched on the fact that Earthborn Games is committed to sustainability. You talked about it just now a little bit, especially in how you manufacture. It seems like you're very committed. Can you maybe tell me a little bit about like where that comes from? Like, was there something in the way that games are manufactured that kind of, rubbed you the wrong way and you wanted to do things differently?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I would talk about a lot with an old friend and coworker of mine, Michael Hurley, who worked was an executive at Asmodee, and we'd kind of talk about, what we could do differently. Just kind of like dreaming about it, really, because we're so focused on the bottom line that like doing anything different is really, really challenging. And even the larger games at that company have to really push to try to do things differently and more ecologically friendly. But when he and I were talking, early on about what Earthborn Games could be. And then it just started to dawn on me, like, how, if it's totally up to me, like, what could we do if there's really nothing standing in the way? If there's no one to tell me, don't do that, that's too expensive. So I was just trying to lean into doing like the most uncompromising version of the product that we could. And, it chose a card game as our first product because I felt like that was something that was definitely achievable with this methodology, where it's just paper, so we can find responsibly sourced paper. We don't have to worry about doing miniatures or dice or anything like that. So it's pretty straightforward production, and I also wanted to produce domestically. So again, I felt like there's a lot of innovation and a lot of expertise in China in particular, because of how much business they do in our industry, and the products that come out of there just look phenomenal, and they keep looking better and better and better. But since I wanted to avoid doing production in China and shipping it across the globe on a boat, and then putting it on a train, and then putting it on a truck, and then moving that truck to another place to put it on another truck. You know, it's like I wanted to try to cut out as many steps of those as possible. So yeah, so that was another reason why I think I wanted to go with a card game, because I felt like, sure, we could do that here. Like we can probably source that here, print that here, and do all that. And if I can't find someone who's like a game publisher, which I have, which has been nice, but I felt like we could probably educate a ambitious printer out there in how to do that. So all those things kind of just continued to evolve and move toward this, which eventually became the vision for Earthborn Rangers. It definitely didn't like sprout out of my head exactly like it is now. It's evolved for sure over time. But yeah, that's kind of how we got here.
And it kind of fits the theme of the game itself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, did that inform the creation of the game?
No.
Or the other way around?
Nope, neither. Yeah. I think
I'm just an environmentally conscious guy, probably.
Yeah, I think like, cause you know, in the back of my mind, I was always kind of aware of like, you know, I think I spent a lot of time thinking about consumer products in my various roles, jobs, and, you know, thinking a lot about like how we package things, like why they're packaged that way. And, you know, it's consumer products in general are just incredibly wasteful. Like there's tons of data on this. And you can see that like the amount of trash that we generate in the world, especially in this country, has really just skyrocketed, since the idea of like shelf presence started to matter, where you have to have packaging that looks cool so that you can sell your thing on the shelf, and the packaging might not have anything to do with what's inside the box, or, you know, it could be disproportionately gigantic based on what's inside, or like have all sorts of like plastic and stuff that, you know, like blisters and things that showcase whatever's inside. And it's a big problem. So I've thought about like the work that I've done and how it contributes to that. And, you know, I felt like when I got out of there, and if I were to do something different, I'd want to do something that didn't negatively impact the environment in that way. So yeah, just, you know, just things I've been thinking about for years and years and years.
Right. That's really cool. I love that. Yeah, it's kind of a conundrum I've thought about myself too, as kind of, you know, I'm kind of a nerdy type of guy that likes to collect plastic figurines and all that. And then, you know, sometimes I look at them and I'm like, why was this ever made? Why do we need this thing? You know?
Yeah.
It's tough. Like being into objects and art objects and stuff, you know, it's cool that you're thinking about how to do it in a way that, you know, allows us to not feel so guilty about it.
Yeah.
And is there anything you wanted to touch on, like specifically that you've been doing this week? I see something about Flesh and Blood.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a great transition, honestly, into that. Like, so I tweeted about this today as you know, if you follow us on Twitter, you know that I don't tweet very often. Yeah, need to do that more. But I was moved to tweet today because I saw this awesome video where, and I'm sorry, I credit the guy who did it, but it was like this video where a guy was looking at so Flesh and Blood is a collectible card game. It came on the scene about a year and a half ago, I think now. Hasn't been around very long, but it's gotten a lot of steam and a lot of interest. And they announced a couple months ago that their next set would feature recyclable 100% paper booster packs. And I thought that was really cool because, you know, collectible card games are fun. Opening booster packs is fun, but the wrappers they come in are terrible. There's nothing good about them. They're not recyclable. They're just trash. And when you know, get like a display of Magic cards or Pokemon cards, you end up, you know, creating this giant pile of refuse that just, you know, just goes straight to the landfill, and it sucks. So I was really excited to see that they were coming out with this. And the video was really great. It talked about this in like 2015. Magic tried to do a kind of like a box booster for one of their like smaller sets that apparently people didn't like because the cards ended up like kind of jiggling around in there and kind of banging up the sides, so they were getting damaged. So they went away from it. I don't know if they did it again. But that was a box, which is kind of what we did for Keyforge for the first, which is another card game that we did it at FFG. Where originally we put that in a box, but not out of ecological reasons. We put it in a box just because it was expensive, and we felt like we needed to like tell people like this is worth a little bit more than a normal booster pack. But that one also had cellophane on the inside, so the cards were still protected. But this is just like a standard booster pack that you might find for like Pokemon or Magic, but instead of being that plastic material, it's paper. And so I watched a video for that today where the guy was kind of like putting through its paces and like checking to see if, because one of the knocks or perceived dangers of a paper booster pack is this idea that you can see through the paper to the cards inside to know what's in there, which is problems we had with like the FFG booster packs for like Game of Thrones and Call of Cthulhu. Like there was like white printed on them. You could totally see what was inside those packs. I don't know if anyone cared.
Yeah,
but you could. But it looks great. Like in every way, it looks like a normal booster pack. It looks like it has a nice, like a little bit of a sheen to it. So it probably has a dispersion, like water-based coating on it. I'm guessing because they say it's 100% recyclable. And it looks like they actually open up maybe even easier and nicer than like opening up a Magic booster. And it's, at least based on the video, it sounds like they have a pretty satisfying sound to open, which is a big part, I think, of the experience of opening booster packs.
Right.
So anyway, I think that's really cool that they're doing that, and that all their sets going forward are going to use that technology. It's great, and like really, there's honestly no excuse for Pokemon or Wizards of the Coast to not do this with their games. The only excuse is people like shiny things, so we're going to put this in a shiny pack because it'll sell better. Yeah. Which again goes back to my point about the problem with packaging consumer products. It's like it's all about pushing to make money. They're not really considering anything apart from that. So so anyway, I hope this set does great. I hope they have continued success and that those other companies take notice and make a change. I actually went to there's a few game stores around me. I went up to this one that's only a few blocks from my house called Game Related, as I wanted to like get some packs to show here, but it doesn't come out till Friday. So
dang.
Yeah, so I'll go back there and I think and get some of those packs. I haven't played, but I want to help support them. I bought a couple starters though, because I think it's great. So if
makes me think of like old like Topps baseball card packaging. That was a little more waxy.
Yeah, they used to be wax back in the day. I don't know what sports cards come in these days.
I think it's like the foil.
Is it
foil looking packs?
Yeah. Back when I did it was wax, it still had gum in it.
Yeah, nice hard stick of gum.
Yeah. So gross. I'd chew it anyway.
My friend's dad was like a crazy baseball card collector, and he had an entire room full of boxes of like 1967 Topps or whatever, where maybe Nolan Ryan's rookie card was in there or something. And we just like stole like a 60s entire box, like went out in the alleyway and we're like trying to find like Roger Clemens rookie card and stuff. But I remember eating the gum from this like 30-year-old baseball
It was
card.
probably still good. Maybe a little dry.
It was fine. It just kind of like disintegrated and you swallow it down. Like,
I could feel that. I know exactly.
Yeah, you know exactly
what
that's
like.
Well, that old style asbestos chewing gum doesn't last very long. So
yeah, is that what's in it?
It's fiber.
Yeah, it never lasted long in the first place. Yeah. Oh man, well, that's pretty cool. I want to see what those packs look like myself. Awesome. Well, we're going to be talking about other sustainability stuff, I think, every week, every other week. But for now, let's move on to segment 3, which I like to call "What's Going On with You," where we're gonna talk. I'm gonna talk to you guys about just cool, fun stuff that's exciting you, or maybe nothing's exciting you, and we'll talk about that too when we get to the root of that. I participated in the Global Game Jam this past week, right. And it's my second time participating in that. Last year, I teamed up with these guys in Philadelphia, and we did it all over Discord. Spent the weekend working on this funny little game in a program called Pico 8, and I got my hands dirty with programming, and I had a blast doing stuff that I wasn't usually comfortable with, but it was awesome. It's probably one of the most fun things I've done. So this year he asked me if I wanted to do it again. I was a little hesitant because I have a little baby, but I asked my partner and she said, go for it. So I spent some time with him on Discord, and we made this little 8-bit looking game. The theme of the game jam was duality. And the meeting they had, I wasn't able to go to the first meeting of our team, and they decided on a dueling game, which at first I thought that's kind of obvious, but sometimes like the obvious idea, you can work with it and shape it into something a little more interesting than what is seems obvious at first. So we decided to go with this kind of 8-bit retro aesthetic, and I loved Mike Tyson's Punch-Out when I was a kid. I don't know if you guys ever played that.
Oh yeah.
I love just the simplicity. It's like a duel, these two guys facing off. I love the pattern recognition that goes on, memorizing each character's unique tells. I thought that would be awesome for a dueling game. And another main component was this dexterity bar that you see in a lot of older games like Mario Golf, where the red line goes up and down and you got to time it right. For some reason, that's just really fun. I don't know. It's such a simple and kind of forgettable part of a game, but I've always found that really fun. So we just try to emphasize the dexterity bar aspect.
What's the game called, Anders?
Oh, it's called Pistols at Dawn.
After Anders started, I'm playing it right now. I want you to know that I've been shot and killed twice already.
Yeah, it's really hard. I played it yesterday, and I had the influences. I didn't pick up on Punch-Out right away, but even the art really makes you think of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had the same thought about I was like, oh, this is early 90s golf mechanics.
Yes.
Except way more stressful.
Well, did you play it on your phone?
No, I played it on my computer.
Okay, yeah. It's pretty hard.
It is hard. It's really hard. I got to the third guy. It's as good as I could get.
Now, I'm going to streak
I learned
right
a new
now.
word. Oh, awesome. I love that you're playing it. It's way more fun than I thought it would be. Because I learned a new word, or a new acronym, MVP. Minimum viable product.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
So that's what we're shooting for. So it's really simple. So I wasn't expecting it to be fun, but just by happenstance, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But we have plans. Yeah.
I like that the second character had 2 blindfolds on, or two eye patches.
That's my creativity. Yeah.
Speaking of that, the opponent, I love the animation and how even the pistol they're brandishing is just kind of floppy or flaccid, whatever, and kind of moving. It's like a piece of rubber.
It's kind of like when you do the pencil trick where you kind of make it look like the pencil's rubbery.
Yep. I was also going to draw a comparison to a game that probably no one here has heard of. But it reminded me of the battle system or whatever. Reminded me of Shining Force. Have you ever heard of that? Came out for Sega Genesis.
I've heard of it.
It's like a... Oh, what do you call it? It's like an RPG, like a top-down tactics-based RPG. And every time you get into a battle, it cuts to like a battle scene where your character is in the foreground, and then they attack enemy that shows up in the background, and it was like exactly the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You sent link me.
Yeah,
that.
check. Yeah,
I'm all about just kind of copying that stuff and making it as authentic looking as possible. I was just gonna say one cool thing that I learned is that how world building, even if it doesn't end up in the final product, how important that is, because we did so much. One of the guys brought his brother in who doesn't do anything on games, but he's a writer, and we spent so much time just creating this backstory for this duel, like and looking into history, into 18th century duels, and dueling itself is so fascinating. You know, a lot of people didn't actually die when they dueled. It was not like, especially in that period, the intention wasn't to kill the other person. It was kind of just they would just both point their guns at each other and fire at the same time, and whoever drops is the loser. And maybe they, maybe just hits their shoulder, and guns at that time were not very powerful, so less than half of people actually died from it. Maybe they get lead poisoning or something, but
I'm sure it wasn't
just
fun.
that era. Yeah, it wasn't fun, but it settled the dispute. And that era has just like a bunch of funny like insults, British, that aristocratic kind of look is just ridiculous. These guys shooting guns at each other and like these powdered makeup and wigs and stuff. But we had this whole backstory. They're in Malta, which you wouldn't know. There's no dialogue, but all this stuff like went into the art, and I feel like its aura is in the game still. So,
well, the main character there exuded an abundance of dignity, which I thought was really funny. So that came through.
The player character.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And when he dies, it's a little tragic, I think.
Yeah, it's very sad.
I like when he reloads his gun.
Oh, that was one
How
of the
scary
funnest.
Would that be? Oh no, I missed. I gotta spend this time reload.
That's not really realistic. I don't feel like they reloaded. They just took one shot and that was that. Yeah. What was I gonna say? One of the most fun parts of making that was doing the bad voiceover. Do you remember like in 8-bit Nintendo games how the voice sounded really like muffled and
double dribble.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did some voice acting for that.
Skate or Die had that too.
Yeah, just Mario making a cameo and Punch Out when you win. Well, that kind of thing.
Is it like chiptune? Is that what it's called? Or
I don't know how they did it. They probably converted. Chiptune is the name of music of that era. But that's what I've got. That's what I've been doing.
That's awesome.
It was great work.
Yeah. Check it out. Where can people find that?
Yeah, check out Horse Honey Games on itch.io. That's my little fake studio name. Horse Honey.
I know that. Did we talk about this in a previous conversation at some point on Skype or something? But there are people that actually like port their games onto like Nintendo cartridges, and they can be played that way and like swapped and traded and stuff.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty neat.
That.
I don't know if you could do that with your cartridges, your games, but that'd be really fun.
It's a really like small file size that you can put on a Nintendo cartridge. It's like under a megabyte or something crazy like that.
Oh wow!
Oh man!
So there's a whole documentary about this game, Micro Mages. It's a really cool documentary. Check it out. They made a game using all the same like software that the early Nintendo guys used.
I love that.
They put out a cartridge. Yeah.
Cool.
A new Nintendo game like 2 or 3 years ago. But that's me. Fisher, you said you've done some game jams before.
Yeah. I was
Right?
actually gonna prompt you. So you said you did it for Global Game Jam. So for those listeners who might not know, can you give the quick elevator pitch of what is Global Game Jam?
I don't fucking know.
That's our first swear word in this.
I just do the drawings, man. No, it's a game jam. Is you usually have, I think, like 48 hours to create an entire game, and without COVID, you would go to a local place with a bunch of other people, and you'd kind of create your teams on the spot. You'd talk to people. Maybe you'd have a friend or two that you want to work with. So you'd find like a musician, an artist, a designer. And I think early on they would actually make physical games more frequently. I don't know.
It's
More
usually
often than
been
making
mostly
video
digital.
games.
Some sites will have like
Okay.
a tabletop game or two, but it's a mostly digital game jam.
Okay, cool. And I think Global Game Jam is maybe the biggest one because it's not just a local thing. A bunch of local spots will do it simultaneously. Did I
Yeah,
explain
all
it
around the
pretty
globe.
well? Yeah, it's super fun. I highly recommend it, finding a local chapter. I think there's one in Minneapolis.
Yeah, in Minneapolis we have the IGDA runs one, the International Game Developers Association, the local branch runs one. But yeah, like you said,
That's
I've
awesome.
done a couple game jams myself. We actually ran a game jam back when I was at Fantasy Flight Games. We did a big company-wide game jam where I talked the powers that be, which I'm pretty sure was Andrew at the time.
Yeah, I think it was me.
into basically putting pause on all development for a couple days. And everybody in the studio kind of came together, and instead of doing our normal jobs, we gave out random topics to different groups. I created groups randomly, and then we assigned these random topics to these random groups. And so the groups were kind of designed to pull people from all sorts of disciplines that normally don't work with each other across the studio into these small groups, and they just had to make a game prototype within just a couple of days. So we did that, and I don't know if any one of the games that we made at the game jam did or will ever make it to actual print, but like the exercise was incredibly valuable, right? Like game development is fundamentally a creative art, and this just created all this creative energy. I all the way through my time at the company, and even afterwards, I've gotten like thanked and complimented on that game jam from people at the company, because ideas from individual games would make it into other games. I guarantee you have played a game. If you played an FFG game, you've probably felt the influence of ideas that came out of that jam from people working together. So while no one product made it to the shelf, lots of like creativity was kind of spurred from this, and a lot of smaller ideas kind of were generated at this jam that made it into games. I think one of the benefits of it, one, kind of the constraints of the time and limited resources force creativity. And then two, it gives you this kind of like unstructured time away from like maybe the looming deadlines or, months and months of work that go into your main project to just be creative in a really unfettered way, which can really kind of like change the way your brain is approaching problems and give you a new perspective. So I think that like for people who are interested in making games, game jams can be really valuable, both from like a practice perspective of actually getting something done if you're only getting into games, but also kind of shaking loose your creativity if you're already into games. So if people out there are interested in them, I highly recommend checking them out. Obviously Global Game Jam just ended, but there are other ones like Ludum Dare is a common one that people do. And I think the YouTube channel Game Maker's Toolkit has been doing a game jam each year that's gotten huge. I think they crashed Itch this last year, so when they did it.
I really enjoyed that experience. I got to have some unique insight into like the game design process, because as a graphic designer at the time, I just was given finished or almost finished games to pretty up as well as I could. But I got paired up with Nate French, and our team made this like cool poker game, because he's like a poker player. And it was fun to just
poker player.
Yeah, and when we finally landed on like a fun mechanic that put a spin on the whole concept of like poker or trick taking or whatever, I just saw his expression change, and his mind shifted, and he was just into this different mode of thinking. And it was just really satisfying to see like how he would all of a sudden become thoroughly engrossed and invested in something once there's like a foothold he could grab onto, then he just took it. It was really cool.
Oh man, yeah, that is so cool. it's just it's true that creativity is really like at its peak during these things I've done, and people kind of switching roles, doing multiple things, and like shining in something that you wouldn't expect. You know, it's super exciting. It's one of my favorite creative projects I've done.
Yeah.
Does anybody else want to talk about what they're into? Is anybody excited about anything? Maybe Fisher?
Yeah. I could talk a bit about what I've been playing. I didn't know how long do we intend to go with our episode here.
We can
what's our rough timetable?
Stuff you guys are into?
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, I think let's just all share.
Yeah, we're almost there.
Yeah, we'll share. We'll just share one thing you're into.
Yeah. Well,
we got you guys.
Yeah, I've been playing. I haven't been doing all my creative time is at work. So when I get done working on Rangers, I've been playing a lot of games lately. I actually just started playing through Hitman, the game where you play the bald assassin Agent 47. The trilogy of kind of since the reboot. So like starting in 2016, there have been 3 games, and those 3 just launched on Xbox Game Pass last week. So I love
watching that game. I love watching people play that game. I've played it like a little bit. It wasn't as fun as watching
it. Yeah, just to kind of see how everything comes together. Yeah, I think what really fascinates me about the game, and actually in one way it has something kind of in common with Earthborn Rangers, even if the subject matter is wildly different. And it is, so each level in the game is kind of this little sandbox that kind of has what I think some people have referred to as clockwork game design. So it'll be like an event. Like the first level is you're at a fashion show, and there's all sorts of people with different like levels of access or places they're supposed to be at different times. And this whole level kind of plays out in this kind of choreographed dance of this fashion show that is going on. And there's all sorts of ways that you as Agent 47 can get in there, put on different disguises to get access to different areas, and just kind of tip the events to change in different ways that cause this cascade that you can then exploit to, ultimately kill your targets, but also do other things. And there's all these little mini plot lines that are going on at these events that all kind of intersect in different interesting ways. And so it's kind of like the inner workings of a clock is, like all the gears and of the internals of a clock is why they call it clockwork game design. And it's really kind of fascinating. It feels like this living event, but that also you can go and have control over. And it was really striking me while I was playing it, because a lot of what happens in the internals of a single Hitman level is like what we're striving to recreate in like using our campaign guide from earlier in the Valley. And that is this feeling of this kind of sandbox that is a living, breathing place that is going about, and there's different people with their different stories. And you as the Rangers are here, and, you're not here to kill somebody, but you are here to kind of like change things and figure out what it means to be a ranger and what it means to kind of like be a steward of the Valley and exert your will on the Valley in different ways. And so we're trying to create this place that feels like you have control over it, but also feels like its own living, breathing place that will carry on without you as well. And so I've actually been seeing a lot of parallels between the design of these Hitman levels, kind of mastering them, getting all the 29 different ways to assassinate people, and kind of seeing all the inner workings with how we're trying to structure inner workings in our campaign guide. I think Hitman has some benefits by being an entirely digital game. They can really obscure things from the players that our campaign guide might not be able to do, because it's a physical artifact that they have to read. But I'm hoping to kind of evoke some of those same feelings that Hitman evokes.
Cool. So we're gonna have a Helmut Kruger NPC.
Helmut. have your ranger put on makeup and walk the fashion runway.
Isn't there a way to like take someone out by throwing a briefcase over your head or something like that? Or is that a different game?
Oh, I'm sure. There's like so many ways.
Okay.
Just the first level has like they have little achievements for different ways to assassinate people, and the first level has 29 different ways to kill people.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
You just got me interested in this. I've always just thought, killing people. I'm kind of done with that, but that sounds pretty amazing, actually.
Well, like Andrew said,
I'll be
it's
downloading that later.
Also, that sound bite of killing people, that sounds kind of interesting. Take it out of context that...
Yeah, I never thought about that.
Pretty novel idea for a game.
But no, like Andrew said, you can check out people playing it. It's watching somebody who kind of knows the level and knows what they're doing is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of my most favorite things to watch on YouTube is people who are really good at games, playing games. Speedruns are so entertaining to watch, especially when it's a game that you've played and your mind is continually blown by how quickly they exploit broken mechanics to like get through a level.
I just don't like thinking about what these people's lives are like, like that's got to be all they ever do.
Or they're just savants.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I've been
it's really good.
I've been losing a lot at video games, so I could borrow some of their expertise.
Yeah. Evan, let's move over to you. Let's hear what you're into.
I haven't really had a lot of time for video games. Like Fisher said, been really busy with Earthborn, and so when I do like have time after work, I usually just like lately I've been just shifting right here and like working on my Craft Worlds Eldar army because of all of the upcoming releases that are slated for this year. It got me back into it. They pulled me back in, so I'm trying to finish painting the crucial tent poles of my army, like the HQ and the here.
Yeah, show that off.
You got a little Spirit Seer right here that I finished painting.
Oh, that looks great.
Oh yeah.
I draw the line at trying to do gems though. I can't do it. So he just has solid teal like jewels.
Oh, you're not doing like the little shine mark?
No, I
It's just
know
a little
how
dot,
to do
just
it.
A little dot. You can do that.
I tried it. Let's see. I think I tried it with this guy. Maybe you can tell. I don't know. Boy, this is great audio right here.
Yeah, holding up
You can't see.
a Eldar miniature to the camera. Looks great.
So, oh, thanks. Yeah, so I finished my Dire Avengers and my Farseer and the Phoenix Lord Oserman,
Cool.
which is a desperately old resin miniature that needs to be updated as soon as possible. But I
Is it
finished
fine
it. So.
cast?
Yeah, he's got that locked in pose, where he's just facing one direction.
Ooh,
'cause
yeah.
it's just one mold.
Yeah,
It's
the
just
old,
shot in
old,
one mold
old
or
school
whatever,
2D guys, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which I think is pretty charming, but he's got to have a good presence on the battlefield too. So, yeah, that's been taking up my time.
That's
That's pretty much it.
A
And
little
watching
feast for the
speedruns.
eyes for the YouTube viewers. Yeah. Thanks, Evan.
Yeah.
Andrew, tell us about something.
Yeah, so I spent some time painting some miniatures this weekend because I love to do window shopping on gamesworkshop.com or just in game stores. I love just to look at the miniatures. But I've really tried these past several years to stop buying anything, and now because I have so many miniatures. So I've kind of like started looking at my miniature collection as my own little shop. So I'll just go and like, if I feel like painting something, I'll just go and like, oh, what do I feel like painting? Well, I have so many options. So I've been really liking the look of the Gene Stealer cults, which are like they just came out with a codex for them. So I was starting looking at Tyranids again and looking at those Gene Stealer cults, which are pretty cool. I was like, oh man, I shouldn't buy any of these. So I went and just dug out my copy of Space Hulk, which I have a bajillion primed Gene Stealers in there. So I just got those out and started painting those. So I painted 3 of the Gene Stealers from my copy of Space Hulk. this weekend. I was sitting down watching some football games. That was really fun. I painted them like the High Fleet Behemoth colors, which are the colors of the Tyranids that we used in all of the old FFG products. So that was pretty fun. They look pretty sweet, kind of like this red and blue scheme.
Cool.
Yeah, so that was cool. So I feel like doing my part by not buying more stuff, just using the stuff I have, because I have plenty.
I'll make sure to balance the scales by buying Craft World Eldar.
No, man.
No,
eco-friendly here. We don't need to buy more things.
I can't stop.
Styrene isn't the worst thing in the world. Not perfect, but there are worse things. And I played a little bit more Final Fantasy VII on Saturday morning. A Final Fantasy VII remake. I'm still not to the next reactor. I just finished turning off a bunch of sun lamps, and I played for a couple hours, got everything in that little area, and got to this really irritating battle at the end of like 2 hours of playing, where I just got just destroyed by these turrets, and I was like, screw this. I cannot do this right now. Stop. And then I tried out a little bit of this game called Kena Bridge of Spirits. Have you heard of that game?
Yeah, won like best indie game, I think, at the Game Awards recently.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's like it has like an old school like open world kind of 3D platformer vibe to it. It definitely feels like it's from a different age, but then it has this really awesome aesthetic and just great looking art design. And thematically, like you were saying, Anders, like I'm kind of over like killing dudes. Like you do fight things in this game, but the thematically it's framed as like essentially like freeing like trapped spirits. So it has a lot of things that are like there's a lot of things thematically with the story in this game that I felt like really similar to like some stuff that we're doing in Rangers. So that was really cool. And like it's beautiful. It's a very, very good looking game. It kind of looks like almost like a Pixar film. Yeah. So the controls are maybe a little mushy, but I was enjoying it. It was a nice change of pace. It was from getting shot to pieces in Final Fantasy VII Remake. And then on Sunday, I got a chance to play Oath with some friends, which is a board game. And that was a lot of fun. I picked up that game a few months ago when I saw it in a local game store, and I kind of wrestled with whether or not I should pick it up because it's pretty pricey. But I was like, oh man, and I don't necessarily have people to play with all the time, so but I did it because like I'll think about it forever if I don't pick it up now. And I played it with my sons, who are people I usually play games with, just my kids. Because they're here, and they're interested. So and it's fun. It's usually fun. Playing Oath with them was terrible though, because it's a competitive strategy game, and
ruthless.
It is pretty ruthless. And the way that's designed, it's always very clear who's about to win. So when it's clear who's about to win, you just gang up. It's like, okay, well, this is what I need to do to prevent this person from winning, and the game points you in that direction. But that didn't really do much for my son, who was like, "Oh, I'm gonna win," and then I'm like, and I did a thing, and then he wasn't winning, and it ended in tears. He felt very bad. So yeah, it wasn't a very happy ending. But I played with my oldest son and a couple of friends on Sunday, and it was really enjoyable. I think it's kind of daunting at first because it's a game that has a relatively loose structure to it. It's on your turn you have like a menu of actions, which are games that I really enjoy. Like I've talked a lot about how much I love Netrunner, and I think Arkham Horror the card game is a similar thing, where you just have options of things you can do, and in a strategy game where you have a bunch of options that you can do, but you don't really know how what you should be doing to win, that you don't know what the strategy actually should be, it can be a little daunting at first. But after a couple rounds, so it's a game by Leader Games, the same people did Root, which I also really enjoy. I think in Root and in Oath, the best part about those rule books are the tutorials, where they just essentially just take you through a turn, and it's a little bit dull because you're just kind of reading like, I do this and I do this and I do this, and it gives you an explanation at the end as to why you're doing the things you're doing, to kind of wrap your head around what a strategy might be for you. So I think that was really great, and really got you on board. But the eyes of my friends were glazing over a little bit by the end. But I think once we finally put that book down, got through the first turn of the non-tutorial, then everyone was into it, and we had a really good time. My friend Aaron was the chancellor, who recruited my son to be a citizen. In a surprise move, and he joined him, and then my son ended up taking a territory away from me near the end to give them the oath keeper title, and then they rolled a 5 because there were at a certain number of turns you roll die to see if the chancellor wins, if they're the oath keeper, and they rolled a 5 and 1. It was pretty cool, because the guy to the left of me, he was about to win if the chancellor hadn't won. So I knew I wasn't going to win. So it was just fun. It was fun drama. I don't know if my friend Luke, if he feels the same way about it, but I thought it was pretty cool for it to end on a die roll. Yeah, it was fun. I was really happy to finally get it to the table, and been chatting with those guys afterward in the days since, and hopefully get it to the table again, because it has this cool kind of persistent element to it, where you take certain cards and locations from the board, and those persist into future games, and the board continues to evolve from play to play. And I think the game will play very differently when it starts with so many cards on the board. So I'm interested to try it out again.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's cool. It's cool to hear about people sitting in the same room together, and those dramatic moments in person.
Yeah,
awesome.
It was great.
I know that Root game has like a Switch port now. So if you don't want to, if the pandemic flares up again, you can play Root on your Switch.
Let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about that.
Well, I think that about does it for this week. Do you guys feel like you've said all you major piece with all of us?
Yeah. I think we covered work, we covered leisure, we talked about sustainability. I think we got pretty good coverage today.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah. Great talk, guys. If you want to find us, the best way to reach us is at info@earthborngames.com. Ask us some questions. I mean, not me. Andrew will probably
I'll get those emails.
Be responding. Right. And we're also on Twitter, Facebook. Just search for Earthborn Games. All right, guys. It's been great.
Cool. Thank
See you next time.
Yeah, thanks, Anders.